Hi, this is Jody from Puppywinkle, and today I'm going to talk about all sorts of ways, probably ways you've never heard of, some of them, to make digital printables your own, to get creative with them, and to get the most out of them. So here we go. So the first way to make the most out of your printables is when you print them, depending on what you print them on, how large you print them, what scale, and what you put on the back or not. So here, I thought these little things should be on paper, just regular copy paper, because that's how I'll use them. I'll put them on top of something else. But of course you could put them on cardstock too. And in fact, I did that. I printed out a large version of it. I think it was at twice the size. So when you're in your print dialog, instead of printing it at 100%, I printed it at 200% on cardstock. And then I used this piece as a whole page over top of a pocket. I'll show you what I'm talking about. But anyway, so the size matters and what you put it on. These are journaling cards, and so I put these on cardstock, and then on the back I put something a printable, but that you could write on. I didn't want something noisy like this that you couldn't write on the back. Here's pockets, and I used cardstock for those because when you're in and out of them, I feel like paper is often too thin. And I didn't put anything on the back of that because you won't see it. Now here I did the same thing on vellum. And vellum is stronger than I think. I'm always shocked at how strong it is. So I think that they make great pockets, and it's a totally different look. Here are fussy cuts, and I just printed those on paper. And here's one of the background pages I got or I made. And I like to have extras of this with nothing on the back, and I'll use it in little collages, and I like to use it throughout just for cohesiveness. I don't want to use this same whole page all the time, but I want to sprinkle this throughout. So a lot of times I'll make pages of my background just for using in other things. Now if I make the background, this is another background page, and I put it on cardstock, then I can use it for a belly band, and I can make my own pockets out of it. It's got a little more strength. All right, so here's an actual journaling page, two sides of it. You'd fold it in half like this, and I always like to print on the back of it if I'm using just plain white copy paper. And so I put a background page there. Again, something plain that you can write on. And then here on this one, I put it on coffee dyed paper, and I inked around the edges and ripped off the corners and things. And so that's just coffee dyed paper, but I like the look of that. I wouldn't have kept this plain because I don't like the look of the plain white. That's totally up to you. So this one I didn't print on the back. I just used the coffee dyed paper. And talk about coffee dyed paper. I've said this before, but I have the best way to make coffee dyed paper. I made all of these. Actually, I made more than this because I've been using quite a bit of it. But I made all of this in 10 minutes. I'm not even kidding. All you do is you get your paper. This is just regular copy paper. Oh, there's a couple. There's some, what is in there? Yeah, notebook paper. Anyway, you put coffee, this was just regular strength coffee because I didn't want it too dark. Put your coffee on a jelly roll pan, like a cookie sheet with, sides so it doesn't all come out. And anyway, you dip the paper in, turn it over, make sure it's all covered, and then you pick it up, tilt it into the so all of it drips in, and then you put it over on a towel, okay? Then you take a piece of plain paper, and put it on top. That keeps it all from sticking. And then you do the next one. You know, dye it and then put it over here. Same thing, and then a plain piece. Now, the problem is sometimes the plain pieces don't get dyed enough. So like this one, the first time I did it, I didn't like how dyed it was. And so then I used this one the next time and actually coffee dyed it, if that makes sense. So if you don't like the way something's dyed, just set it aside, and then the next time you make them, make sure you coffee dye this one. But anyway, I just do it like that, bang, 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 put them all on a pile, and with one blank in between. And then what did I do? I went to the gym and then I made dinner. So hours later, I was afraid it might be stuck all together, but it wasn't. I just peeled it up, set it aside, peeled it up, set it aside, and I just put, piled it right back up again. And I did that a couple times, and by then it was dry, and yeah, that's all I did. So anyway, it's so fast, and it takes up no space, and I love it. Okay, just to show you what I was talking about earlier, this right here is this. And so I enlarged it and put it here under the pocket, and so it looks like a whole different page. So that's how I got that look. Another way to get the most out of your digital printables is to embellish your journaling cards. So like I said, it's nice to put something on the back, but nothing too wild. This one I did stripes because it looks like you could kind of write on it. I like that. But anyway, so the basic thing I do is I round the corners and ink the edges, and then there you have it. And then this one, so on the back, I put a coffee dyed piece of lined paper, if you can see that, little fussy cut from the kit, and a little rub-on embellishment. And I also roughed up the edges and did not round the corners to make it look really kind of authentic here. I also used this spray, Distress Stain in Antique Linen, Tim Holtz, and it gives these little dots, which I think that looks like old paper, because if you've seen old ephemera, it often will have these little stainy things on them. So there's that one. And here is this same journaling card, and all I did was collage over it. I used some stamp here and here. Then I used some of the paper, the background paper, just a couple strips of that, a little washi tape. That's from the kit, and a few little ephemera things, and then a big sticker here. And so that's the same journaling card, but I don't think anybody's going to notice it. Oh, and then I put a little rub-on down here in the back. And so that's just a really fun way to do that, to just add a little extra. This postcard here is that. So I added a stamp, a real stamp, well, not a real stamp, an actual fake stamp. And I used a postal cancellation stamp there. And I wanted to get some blue, because the only blue on there was the stamp then. And then I used some just blue accents over here and some rub-on numbers. And then here I used a little rub-on on top. Another way to make the best use of your printables is to really lean into your fussy cuts. I know they can be a pain in the neck to do, but they're not as hard as you think, and they don't take as long as you think to cut them out. I don't always. For the intricate things, I like to use a craft knife, and as opposed to scissors. And for this particular one, I'm going to go down when I see the whole petal. I'm going to go down it all the way to the center. Yeah. I cut most of it out so you didn't have to suffer through it. But anyway, so this now has actual petals that kind of move. I think that'll give it a good look. I'll probably ink on the back so it's not so white if it's sticking up. But anyway, if you just cannot bear that cutting, one thing to do is to print it on tissue paper. Take a regular piece of either cardstock or copy paper and tape tissue paper around the edges so it sticks to the cardboard or whatever, and so that'll go through your printer. And just print on tissue paper, and then you can just rip it apart and use it in collages and things. And you know, and the tissue paper just kind of disappears. So if you don't like to fussy cut, print these fussy things on tissue paper because they make such a difference. And one thing, like, I'm going the extra crazy step here, but it's, oh my goodness, it's so cool. I don't know if you can see this. These are fussy cuts that I waxed. I put wax on them. And so they're like parchment paper. It turned them dark. They have this wonderful, wonderful substance. Oh, so good. So this is unwaxed, and that's waxed. So they're going to be so fun to use. So fun. And how I waxed them, I used this paper. Took a piece of paper, folded it in half. I got this at Michael's. I happen to have a $5 coupon, so I used it on this. It's coconut and paraffin wax blend. I think it's for making candles, I believe. And so, yeah, because it was in the candle section. And so you just kind of peel some of this off. That's plenty. And then you just put it on here. Like I did a bunch at a time. And then you close it up and you take your iron. And as it got more and more waxy on here, I started using a second layer because I didn't want to get wax on my iron. And you just put it on, like it was on synthetic or not even there. Like it was on the lowest setting. And I just put it down like this. And I picked it up. And if it wasn't quite all melted in, then I just did it again. But most of the times it was totally melted in. And then the bonus is you have this great piece of paper to use. So that's going to be something for darn sure. So anyway, lean into those fussy cuts in whatever way you can do that. And I forgot to say, if you want to ink them, which I did, if you want to ink around the edges, you have to do that first before you wax them, or else the wax won't let the ink through. I don't think. I didn't try it. Okay, and my last tip is to get creative with how you use the pages. For example, this, when I see it, I think, well, that's a journaling page. I can't use it for anything else because it's split down the middle. You fold it in half, and there you have your 2 pages. I wouldn't know what else to use that for. Well, that's not the case. I took that exact image, and then I took 2 book pages, and I glued them onto a piece of cardstock because they were flimsy, and there's no way they were going through the printer on their own. So then I put this through the printer and then printed this on top of it, and I got this. And from that I cut a tag. So, you know, it doesn't matter that it looked like a journaling page. I got something very cool out of it just by chopping it up and letting myself think of it in a different way. And I did that with a lot of things. This is a folio. In fact, I have a printable, a free printable for this on my website. I'll link to that for the shape of it. And anyway, instead of using the page that came with it, I used one of the journaling pages again. I don't think I have a copy of it. I don't, yeah. It's one of the journaling pages, and I used that to cover it instead of the thing that came with the printable. And then I have this nice little folio with fun stickers in it and things to put in a journal, so then they can decorate. They can decorate on their own with the little fun things. So again, using a journaling page in a completely unintended way. This was one of the background pages, and I took apart an envelope I had and traced it and made an envelope out of the matching paper. Here are whale tail tabs, and I happen to have one, and so I traced around it on some cardstock, some printed cardstock. This was one of them, one of the pages. And so now I have whale tail tabs that match. I used one on here as the top of a tag. And this was one of the little cutouts that I blew up and put on cardstock. This was a piece of fussy cut, and so was this. I had this template for an envelope. I printed it on this paper. And now I have an envelope that's going to match my journal nicely. And last, I had a library card that I took apart. And I printed on two sides because I wanted it to be two colors, because library pockets show on both sides. Yeah, so I printed yellow on one side, blue on the other, and then traced around my template. And now I have two library pockets. So just think outside the box a little bit, and you'll come up with a million ways to make these printables into something amazing. So the printable I used to make all this is not quite available. I will put a link up there as soon as I get it available, because I'm going to put this video up and then get to work on the rest of the printable. So anyway, thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.